Okay, hi there. This is probably the most personal video I will ever make, and it's something that I wanted to talk about for a really long time, but I felt too uncomfortable with myself to do so, as you will hear more about soon. But the changes of testosterone have brought me to a place where I feel like I can talk about it. And I was also unsure how to put this into words, so I wrote a script. Forgive me for looking down at my laptop throughout this video. Also, parts of this video will be quite dark, not in lighting, but in emotions, I suppose. I just thought I'd let you know before I jump in. So, I started making YouTube videos 3 years ago, and in my first video I said my name and introduced myself by telling the camera about my favourite bands at the time.
Except for Fall Out Boy, All Time Low, Bring the Horizon, Paris DeVille, Panic! At the Disco, My Chemical Romance, Sleep with Sirens.
My next videos were mostly just some silly skits I made for my friends online. My YouTube was never meant to become personal to me, and it was never supposed to become something for many people to watch. By the way, I feel like it's worth mentioning that I've always enjoyed helping people, and most often the best help I can provide is the type of help I wish I'd once gotten myself, so it is based on my own experiences. This is without mentioning specifically what my own struggles are, but it's not hard to figure that out based on what help I am trying to give someone. I think this is a pretty general thing though. People are passionate about what hits close to home. So in the autumn of 2015 I made a video about how to make a chest binder. It was something that I myself wanted at the time, but I couldn't possibly get a proper one. So when I came across a little description of how to make one online, I wanted to share it with others who'd maybe find it helpful, and I thought YouTube was a great platform for that. Some people said it was indeed helpful, so half a year later I made another video like that, and they both got quite a lot of views. My first video talking specifically about my personal journey of being transgender was a video titled My Year 2015, where I talked about my year and showed my transition from presenting as feminine to presenting as masculine. A lot of things happened that year. This was mostly a way to document it for myself. The following year I made more videos about it, mostly videos in which I tried to help others with what I could, but also documenting how I felt after coming out to my parents. People seemed to enjoy that type of content, and soon more and more people started watching my videos, including people I knew in real life. This was terrifying. Until then, YouTube had, to me, felt like a place where I just talked into the void. What I said didn't really matter because no one except people on the opposite side of the globe actually listened to me. Simultaneously, my discomfort with myself kept growing. I realized I had shared something very personal online, and that was difficult. Whatever I did, I felt like people would always associate the videos I had put up in the past with who I am now. Videos on a very personal matter that I struggled with and I was ashamed of. I faced a dilemma. I wanted to take down all my LGBTQ+ related content, and I was just terrified that if I made a new friend in real life, they would look me up online, find my content, and think differently about me. All I wanted was to be accepted as and seen as a normal guy, and not to be different from anybody else. But at the same time, helping people kind of works as something driving me in life, and those videos did seem to have helped a few people out. It would absolutely break my heart to take that away from them. Granted, many other people online could provide people with the same information and advice, and I didn't really think of myself as special, but I still felt guilty, and it was important to me because helping others gives me purpose. But my dysphoria was horrible. At one point, I remember I would often lock myself into my bedroom, turn off the lights, and lie under my duvet crying. I didn't want light to hit my skin and show my unwanted curves. I'd at times refuse to speak because it physically hurt my throat and chest to hear my own feminine voice. I'd hate myself for getting out of bed and go to school in the morning, because that meant that people would have to look at me and see all the parts of myself that I hated, like my feminine features, as well as they would misgender me. I locked myself into the handicapped bathroom at school, turn off the lights there, and sit there in the dark as well. For some reason, light hitting my skin and exposing my body that I was so uncomfortable with was really physically painful to me. I remember one year for my birthday, I got a post box and some of my viewers sent me drawings they had made for me. I hung them up on my wall because I appreciated people taking the time to make that for me. But I stayed in my bedroom a lot of the time due to my depression and anxiety as a result of my dysphoria. And on these drawings were a lot of pride flags and trans symbols. This meant that every time I looked up, the trans symbols on my wall reminded me of what I was going through. I was constantly reminded of my body, my hard struggle with fighting for a chance to physically transition, my parents, and all the guilt I felt for being this way. Of how much I hated myself and how abnormal and different I felt. I felt awful for doing this, but one day I couldn't take it anymore and ripped all the drawings off of my wall and put them in a drawer. And they're still there today. I just struggled so much with the feeling of being weird and abnormal and like I wasn't what I was supposed to be. I didn't feel like I was enough. Enough of a guy, enough of a person, and just enough in general. I felt like an incomplete, weird, deformed, disfigured human being. But I don't think that way about other trans people. My dysphoria was just so intense. Here's another example. Funnily enough, as pride parades are all about accepting yourself, I never have, nor can't ever imagine going to one as openly transgender. I'd just go as bi or gay, which is also hard for me to accept, but way easier than the fact that I'm trans. Not because I'd feel unsafe there if someone knew. I just want to be seen as a regular guy, and I'm scared that if people, even at Pride, find out I was born female, they would see me as such. Again, I don't think this way about other trans people at all. It's just the fact that I'm so freaking insecure. I haven't really talked about this online before, especially not this detailed. So while I was struggling with this, I would get messages from people every single day saying that they wish they were as comfortable and confident as I am. And I just couldn't believe that that's how I came across online. But I kept making trans related videos because I liked helping people, at least trying to help people. It made me feel like I was doing something right in life, and it helped me cope, and it was also an outlet. But then people started calling me a trans YouTuber because of my content, and I hated it. Why couldn't I just be seen as a normal guy who made trans related stuff? Why did I always have to be called this trans guy from Norway? But I saw these other people online being called the same, and they owned it. They had pride flags hanging in the bedroom in the background of the videos. They put it in the usernames, important dates in the transition, in the bios, posting about how they weren't ashamed and how they were proud and how they loved the trans experience. Even if they weren't proud or didn't like their bodies because they felt dysphoric, they seemed to be so proud of their identity and where they came from. So why couldn't I be like that? Why was that so hard for me to achieve? Everyone assumed that that's how I felt about it due to my content and how seemingly open I was about it online, and I honestly felt like I was lying to people. I didn't start YouTube to make trans stuff. I didn't want to become a trans YouTuber, it just happened. And it became increasingly hard for me to post videos like that and just post videos in general. It was so difficult because I couldn't stand looking at myself. Editing was awful because I had to listen to my own voice, which made me feel so uncomfortable and dysphoric and just horrible. And I didn't want to talk about it anymore. I just wanted everyone to forget. I wanted to forget. It became so painful to talk about online because it meant that I constantly reminded everyone of the fact that I was different, and they sort of reminded me back. And what some people don't know is that I basically refused to talk about it in real life. When I started a new school last autumn, I made a new Instagram account that I wanted to give out to people so that no one would discover my old one and find out. It felt like this huge, dirty secret that I wanted to keep from everyone. I didn't want them to think of me as different, and if they knew, I'd remind myself of it, and I'd remember how I'm different and weird and not enough. But my new peers did find my YouTube channel, and they didn't really seem to care at all. Not in a bad way anyway. They never asked me about it, and they think it's cool that I have followers online. So, was it all just in my head? But I still do feel like they see me as different. They are very nice to me though, moving on. Then in the beginning of February this year, I started testosterone, finally. something I fought for years, and although I once again was very hesitant to drawing attention to the fact that I am trans, I wanted to share it with my followers online, you guys, because many of you have been a part of my journey for years, and I also wanted to document it for myself. And a bit over a week ago was International Transgender Day of Visibility. I didn't know this, but found out when one of you guys messaged me and wished me a happy one. Usually this would upset me, as it reminded me of the fact that I'm trans, but I know you meant well. My plan was immediately to remain silent though. It was painful. I wanted the day to just pass without mentioning it. I didn't want to bring it up, because that meant I'd remind everyone that I was different, and I'd also remind myself. But then I realized that this made me part of the issue. And that's why I wanted to make this video. I wanted to be honest with you about how I feel. Usually the trans people we see online are strong, fierce and proud, because that's for the most part those of us who make ourselves visible. But I want to let you know that it's okay if you're not there yet. That it's okay if you're having a hard time accepting yourself, because even I, who finally cut my hair off 3 years ago and I'm now 2 months on testosterone, I am still struggling with that. Truth is, I feel different to most other visible trans people online because I don't even identify as trans. I don't see it as part of my identity. I see it as part of my medical history. When people ask me why I have to take testosterone, I don't tell them that I was born female. I tell them that I have a condition in which my body naturally doesn't produce enough of the hormone I need to go through puberty, so I have to get it injected, which isn't a lie. I just see myself as a guy with a medical condition. But although I don't necessarily see it as part of my identity, I must admit that it is still part of me because it's part of my history in general, not just my medical history. My past doesn't define me, and I don't want it to either. But what I do want is to accept where I come from, because it has shaped me into who I am today, and admittedly in a positive way, I think. I think I'd be far less understanding and open-minded if I hadn't been through what I have. Another reason why it's difficult for me to find pride in being trans in itself is that it's not an achievement. And how can I be proud of something I didn't choose? But I suppose that I do have reason to be proud of something related to being trans, and that is how far I've come and how strong I've been, even when I didn't feel like I was. I didn't end my life even when I could have and really wanted to. I'm still here. And again, I do want to change. I don't want to be ashamed of where I come from, because it's very painful to me right now, and it also means that I'm ashamed of who I used to be. And I don't want to, because it makes me feel very guilty. Because I feel like after all of this, I owe it to my past self to be proud, not ashamed. When I was 13, 14 and even 15, all I wanted was to be seen for who I am, for my family to be okay, my social transition to be complete, and to be able to at least start my physical transition. In other words, all I wanted was to get to the point where I am now. And I wanted to die because I thought I would never in a billion years get there. So now that I am here, I feel like I owe it to that scared, confused, agonized little kid basically, to be proud of where I come from, all aspects of who I used to be. I want to be proud of them, because they got me to this point, because they didn't give up, even when they wanted to. I owe it to them to accept myself and accept them as part of me. To be proud of them and to be proud of who I am today. And I honestly do see myself going in that direction. Now that I'm on testosterone, things are getting a bit easier. I'm not as hard on myself in general. Being reminded of the fact that I'm trans still does hurt, but not as much as it used to, because instead of being reminded of how much I hate myself for being different, I'm also reminded of how testosterone is making me hate myself less, because I'm starting to see myself in the mirror now. Which sounds very cliche-ic, but it's true. Though, admittedly, I am still a bit different, which is still hard to accept, thus it hurts. But I hope to one day realize that it's okay if people find out about where I come from and what I've been through. Maybe it wasn't ever as much of a fear of other people not accepting me as it was the fact that I didn't accept myself. Not that other people didn't see me as valid, but that I didn't validate myself. Because most people have always been so nice to me, and I feel like if I really did accept myself, it wouldn't matter as much if other people didn't. Because I would know that I'm fine as I am. And there really is nothing wrong with me. and hopefully I'll feel comfortable talking about things related to being transgender on my channel to hopefully help other people, and even to do so in real life. And that I won't be scared to bring it up, because if I did remind others and myself of it, then them nor me would have to think of me any differently, because I'm still the same guy today, even after information of where I come from has been brought up. I'm determined to work towards that, because I do want to help people, and I also want to do it for myself. I've recently been contacted by a couple of Norwegian news outlets, one of which is pretty big. They wrote an article about me, and I even went to the studio and was on the radio one morning. And I talked about my transition and my YouTube channel. It feels really weird because this is so personal, but it might be good for me to get out of my comfort zone like that, to force myself to realize that I may not be the average teenage guy, but honestly that's okay. And to show others that people who aren't the average teenage guy or girl or person, that they're okay too. There's nothing wrong with us, not just in terms of being trans or gay, but just in general. And including myself in that way of thinking is what will really help me one day become the person I want to be. And who I want to be isn't just someone with male secondary sex characteristics. I want to be someone who's comfortable in himself, more than just physically. I don't want to waste my time on being anxious and insecure and feeling like I'm carrying around this huge, dirty secret anymore. I want to be proud of, accept and respect who I was, who I am now, and who I will be then. I want to be content with all parts of myself, and that won't be a result of testosterone alone. And that's why I wanted to document where I'm at right now by making this video, to one day hopefully be able to look back and smile at how far I've come. I think to myself that I shouldn't have wasted years of my life feeling insecure about being transgender and not straight, because that's okay. And wanting to go back in time to tell the 16-year-old me and younger me that the way I am is okay, and that I shouldn't be scared of being doomed to be alone because I don't have the parts that people would normally expect that I would have as a guy. There's probably someone out there. It's okay, I'm a strong, independent young man, I can do it. I also feel like I've been too insecure to properly connect with you guys on my main channel in a while, so I thought I could do that by sharing with you how I really feel, as it's easy to assume what someone feels or thinks based on how they portray themselves online, which isn't always actually the case. And I also wanted to let you know that there is so much more to transitioning than just getting a deeper or higher voice. And if you feel slightly weird about being trans or gay or different in any other way, and struggling to accept yourself while seeing all these other people online who are confident, know that you're not alone in how you feel. It's not easy, and that's okay. It really isn't a walk in the park, although it can be portrayed as such online sometimes. So, thank you for listening, and thank you for always supporting me. I'm trying my best to support myself more as well. I often hear from you that I inspire you to accept yourselves, but I'm pretty sure that it's the other way around. So, thank you for being by my side through everything. Stay safe and eat drink, and do not hurt yourselves, and remember that you are so much more than you could ever realize. Seriously, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!